Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making the laser beam for our player so that we can come in here and actually damage our enemies. So inside of my player folder here, I'm going to need to open my player, but I'm also going to need an input action to handle this. I think it's just easier to add an input action here than it is to just add the debug key. So we're going to come in here, we're going to right click and we're going to say input, input action. If you've never made one of these, it's easy. IA. Let's just call this fire beam or beam attack. Beam attack. And we're not even going to change anything in there. We just want it when it's pressed. And that's fine with me. If we wanted it to be held or something else, we could change that, but pressed is fine. We're going to come into this IMC default where it says mappings. We're going to open that up. We're going to hit plus. We're going to say IA beam attack, and we are going to assign that to the key of the left mouse click. So left mouse button. We're going to save that. And we're going to close these. We're good, it's implemented. Don't have to worry about it. So now on one, I'm actually going to put this back on the spawner system. That way we're able to spawn the enemies in. We're not going to need debug key 2 anymore. But inside of our player here, right, we actually need to do some things to get that kind of working. So we need to right click anywhere on our graph and say IA beam attack. And we're going to grab this enhanced input action event. It should look like this. You're going to drop it down here. You're going to have all of these different values. None of these matter to us right now. We're adding a new custom event. We're going to call this try fire beam. This event is going to be run on server and reliable. And when this is triggered, we are going to try fire beam. This isn't really about combat or efficiency. This is just getting a beam attack in the game to destroy enemies and assign them to the player that destroyed them and make sure all the stats are updating. There are much more effective ways to do a beam attack. So try fire beam needs to do what's called a switch has authority, just to make sure that this is the authority and not a client actor. So we need an array here of hit actors as well. So I'm just going to make a variable called hit actors. And this is to basically stop this system from overkilling, because otherwise it would hit every actor every time that it's, if I can just type actor, of the type actor, just normal actor. Because if we have not like checked off of an array, then we're going to have a bad time. It's going to like multi-hit and do a bunch of weird stuff. And I don't really want that. So I'm just going to clear that and make sure it's clear when I start running this from the authority branch. It doesn't really need to be replicated. Just cleared is fine here. Then we're going to run what's called a multicast event. So I like to run these pretty early on. So we're going to call this beam effects, and this is going to be multicast. That way everyone kind of gets the same UI out of the beam effect. This is where we would play our sound effects or create our Niagara particle system, which is actually all we're going to do here is spawn system at location, and that location we're going to get in just a second, and we're going to make that Niagara system in just a second as well. It's going to be very, very simple. But for now, all we need to know is that we're just trying to fire this beam on the server, and then we have our beam effects. And after this beam effects gets called, we are going to run a multi-sphere trace by channel. And again, we kind of want the multicast to be early because it takes a little bit longer to run. If we run all the logic first, then the multicast may be coming like after the enemies have already been hit and all that stuff, and then it gets a little sloppy. So that's something to keep in mind there. So right now, we're not going to worry about the start, end, or radius or anything like that. We'll worry about that in a minute. Out of our out hits, we are going to just run this through a for each loop. We are going to break this. I wish there was like context-specific keys. Anyway, we're going to break this hit result. We're going to take the hit actor, and we're going to add that to hit actors, but we want to add unique. Otherwise, we're going to be adding in the same actor multiple times, and then they're still going to get damaged multiple times, because this is going to draw basically just the whole crapload of spheres, and every time anything interacts with that sphere, it takes a hit. So you end up hitting the same enemy multiple times, but you actually only want to damage them once, and that's why we're putting them in a unique array, because after this is all done, we're going to take this hit actors, and we're going to run that through a for each loop. And inside of this for each loop, we are going to actually do the damage. So we already know that we are still on the authority on the server. What we're going to do here is we are going to get controller. You don't want to get player controller, you want to actually get controller. This is going to return a base controller object, not a player controller. there's an important difference there because this loop body is going to run what's called apply damage. And this is a built-in function in Unreal Engine. I would recommend using this. I avoided it for a long time, but we're going to make this super simple and don't worry too much about it. So we're going to take this get controller. We're going to put that in the event instigator because the controller instigated this. We're going to take the damage causer and we're going to say self because this player was the one who damaged it. For the base damage here, we're just going to say 25 because I don't care too much to make a damage system at this point in the tutorial series. We may make one later on, but for now 25 is fine. We're going to take this array element and we're going to put it in the damaged actor. Okay, so we know that the actor being damaged is the hit actor. We are just getting the controller from self to get the base controller class instigator reference, and we are just getting a reference to self for the damage causer. And that is all we're going to do there. Okay, that's it. Just apply damage, the built-in function. And we're going to show you how to actually implement that in just a moment. But there are two more things we want to do to actually finish up the player real quick. So we need to know where this sphere trace channel is going to be going, and we're going to do that by making a custom function here. But before I make that custom function, I'm actually going to go ahead and make the Niagara system. So I'm just going to come into my waveframe game, and I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this FX. And I'm just going to open up FX. We're going to open that up and say Niagara system. And we're just going to make a new Niagara system of the type dynamic beam. We're just going to create that, and I'm going to call this NS beam attack. Now, I really didn't change too much inside of this base beam that we have here. I just kind of set the loop duration to 3 seconds. I went down to this emitter beam setup. I didn't even fix the issue. I said the beam end was going to be 5,000, which kind of made the beam long, if you can see, just longer. I actually took the spawn count down to about 20, so we're not spawning as many. And I came down to this built-in scale curve, and I set the scale curve to 80. Here we can change the colors. You can have any kind of color beam you want. You have a yellow beam. You just have to save when you change the color. So if I want the purple beam, or I want the yellow beam, or the blue beam, you know, I can do whatever color beam I want here. We're just going to make this, I guess, this color. And I could have swore I did something else here, but I guess we'll figure it out when we figure it out. But, you know, this is generally fine. We just want something to kind of represent a laser beam. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make this system template, that Niagara beam attack that we just made in the beam effects. And we need a way to basically determine the location and rotation that this beam is spawning at. But one more thing I do after that is I set custom time dilation to 5, and this is kind of like slowed down the beam. I liked it, so that's what I'm keeping with it. Anyway, we need a way to find our look at rotation and our true head rotation. So like the true values for these, because if we just spawn it at like getting the character's mesh and getting the socket transform of the head and just breaking that and adding in the location and the rotation. We could show this. Since we already have the input action, which is already going to be on left mouse click, we should be able to already fire our beam. So let's go ahead and just test that out real quick. We see that it's, you know, it's pointing up, it's a cone. We don't want that. We don't want our beam doing this. This is not the direction of our beam. Anyway, we don't want the beam on the head, right? So we need a way to basically determine where this beam is and kind of adjust it. And since I need this twice, I just went ahead and collapsed this to a function. So I'm just going to grab these guys and I'm going to collapse to function. And we're going to call this get true head lock and rot. So get true head location and rotation. And it's going to be pure, and it's just going to return location and rotation. I'm going to duplicate that up here because that is where this multi-sphere trace is also going to start. The multi-sphere trace is just going to do something slightly different with it. So we're going to take location, plug location into the start. We're going to take rotation. We're going to get forward vector of the rotation. We're going to multiply that by a float. So we're going to right click the input pin, say to float. And the float is going to be 5,000. I think 5,000 is a good number. And then we're going to add that to the location. and set that to the endpoint. And the radius here can just be 20. And we can just draw this for a frame. That way we kind of know which direction this is going in as well. And now we're going to have to do this get true head function. Now when I did this before, I used specific values. I'm just going to go ahead and try to use those again. So basically we're still doing the same thing up until this point. We're getting the mesh, we're getting the head socket transform, and we're just breaking it. But we want to also break this rotator, not into axes, into floats. So break rotator. And we want to take the pitch here, and we want to just minus 90 degrees on the pitch. And then we're going to use this to make rotator. And we're just going to remake that rotator with that minus 90 on the pitch. And hopefully, if all is good in the world, when we come in here and we press play, yeah, the beam is going where the player is looking, which is what we wanted. So yeah, we have this beam here. If I come over to where my server player is, I think he's, where does he spawn? He spawned over here. Did he spawn over here? No, that's the other. So you're the server player. So if I come over here, right, you can see the line traces on the server player. It's a little hard because of the golden beam. So let's go ahead and nerf this beam a little bit. I'm not entirely sure what happened with my life cycle here. I think I said loop behavior was supposed to be once on the Niagara system. So I'm going to update that to once and just try again. Okay, yeah, now our laser beam's properly dissipating. So I come in here as a server player. We can really see where that trace is happening. And we can see that it's like showing up properly on the clients. And if I have this client over here, they are firing the beam. And we can see the beam kind of coming in on the other client as well in the server. So that is more or less exactly what we want out of our little beam attack here. Basically just to be showing up and replicating. So now we need a way to actually damage the enemies. Because remember, in the player, we called to damage the enemies this apply damage. Well, unless we implement this apply damage function in our enemies, nothing is going to happen. So let's go into our enemy blueprint class. We're just going to do this in the enemy base class. And what we need to do is make a couple of functions here for it to be able to kind of handle its own death. So we're going to right click anywhere in the graph and we are going to say event any damage. So there are a lot of really cool built-in damage events in Unreal Engine. I'm not going to go through in too much detail. We're just going to use this event any damage to basically do stuff with that damage event. This doesn't mean an internal health value or anything like that has to be set. We still use external health values and stuff. So what we're going to do is event any damage. We're going to switch as authority. This is pretty important because we want to make sure that we have the authority. And it should be server only. But we want to make sure we have the authority. We need a health variable. Again, health, and that's going to be a float. This is not really the point of this tutorial series to make stats and health. We're just going to make a replicated health value. So you kind of understand how this works. We're going to take that health value. We're going to see if that is greater than 0. If that is greater than 0, then we can continue. If it is not greater than 0, then something has happened and we've attacked an enemy in the pool, and we don't want that. So we're just kind of building this to handle that later on. Now we need to set health. So we're going to drag out of health. In the true branch, we're going to set it to health minus this incoming damage value. And we're just going to go ahead and set that. Again, if we want to do a more detailed stat system later, we'll do that. But for now, we just want the simple is hit, does die. So we're going to see if that is less than or equal to 0. If that is less than or equal to 0, then we need to do some stuff. So we need to take this instigated by, remember that controller reference that we put in here. From a controller reference, we can get player state. And this is going to get you that same player state that you would get out of your custom player controller. As long as that is the input that we passed, right, when we made all of this stuff, and it is. So our get player state here is going to add kill. You remember that BPI message that we made when we made our player state values, and we're not casting into our custom player state or anything like that. This is just whatever player state is being used is going to try to run this iKill message. If this message doesn't run, it's usually because you didn't set up the player state properly and it's not using the BPI. So after that, we need to actually make a couple of custom events here, and we need to make one. It's just called try handle death. And try handle death needs to be run on server and reliable. We're going to have to do a couple things in here, and we're just going to call try handle death as soon as this enemy has died. So hopefully that all made sense there. That is all we're doing here. If you had other stat parameters or wanted to play animations or sound effects or do something else, you could totally do different things with this damage causer and damage type, but we just don't have time to deal with that today. So our run on server try handle death, what this is going to do is it's going to again say switch has authority. And this switch has authority is going to run, just like we did earlier, a multicast handle death event. This is going to be multicast and reliable, and we are just going to handle death. Now we need to check and see if this is a boss. So we need a new variable in here called is boss. And this is going to be a setup variable, but we'll get into that later on. Basically, right here, we just need to check and see if it is the boss. If it is the boss, then we handle the boss death. If it's not the boss, we don't handle the boss death. But we'll get into that when we get into the game mode that actually handles this. For now, we just need to know if it is a boss or not, which doesn't even matter. Really, we're just running this ROS handle death. And this ROS handle death is, once again, going to see if it is a boss. Because if it is a boss, we need to do something else. We need to just destroy the actor. Because we're not pooling bosses, there's no reason I want to keep a huge boss around for any reason. Anyway, if we are false here, we're going to set actor hidden in-game to true, new hidden. And that's all we're going to do here. Because without actually calling into the game mode BPI events, we can't do too much more. I just want to print a string when I do this, saying enemy defeated. Because again, at some point later on, we are going to be calling handle death events in the server, and the server is going to be making sure all of this is the authority. But for now, we just wanted any damage events to be in here. This is done. And we wanted to have basically our framework for handling the death kind of implemented and ready to go. So now when I come in here, I press play, and as long as I'm on my server, and I press 1, I can start spawning a bunch of enemies in. And now, even on my clients, when I kill these enemies, when I hit them with my laser beam, nothing is happening. Oh, and nothing is happening because our enemies don't have any health, obviously. So I'm calling this event I return to play here. I want to set health to 100, and we'll just deal with that for now. And I guess just getting the hit actor probably wasn't a great idea here either. We want to get does object implement interface, and just check if it implements the BPI damageable. And then if it does implement the BPI damageable, we can add it to this hit actors array. And print a string that we added something to that hit actors array. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to finish out, I guess, the pooling logic on the enemy. So it should be set hidden in game. So set actor hidden in game. To be a new hidden false, and set actor enable collision to true enable collision. And there's one more thing I wanted to do inside of the collision settings. So we're going to come over here to the capsule component. We're going to come over to the collision presets, and we're going to say the collision preset is going to be, and we're going to make that custom and just ignore the camera. And I guess since this is ignoring visibility, that might be our problem here. So in our collision presets for character mesh though, yeah, let's go ahead and make that custom as well. And we want to ignore camera, and we want to block visibility. And let's just go ahead and give that a try. And now we can see that we are mowing down some enemies as the server. We know that this is working. I'm just going to go ahead and spawn a whole bunch of enemies in here. And we're going to start doing some stuff with those on the clients. So the client's getting a couple of kills here. Maybe I'll change the damage to 100, that way they annihilate. But yeah, the client's getting some kills here. It's not updating on the other client, it's not updating on the server. The only things that aren't updating properly are the team scores, but that is because we will be tying those into the game mode later on. We see that the individual score in the player states is properly updating. Yeah, we're getting it done. Again, we're getting a bunch of these errors here, and that's because we're not moving the enemies. We haven't done the game mode logic. In the next episode, we'll do the game mode logic to go ahead and finish up everything for the framework before we actually dive into the actor components. Thank you for watching. Consider joining our Patreon. For just $3 a month, you'll get instant access to all of the project files and the videos as soon as they come out. Now, on to the next one.